Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are in the world. Today I'm going to read you one of my short stories. And what brought this to my mind last night was that I was speaking with Jaestone after I won one of her paintings. It's a beautiful white moon with a purple sky in the background and the black silhouette of trees and then the shimmering water in front, and she's going to personalize it for me, and I'm very excited. Anyway, she's also done some other paintings, some really beautiful work, and she's done these lips that are like American lips. They're they have a blue spot over on one side with little white dots that represent the stars, and then the lips are striped red and white. And from the lips, she actually melted wax that's coming down from the mouth. And it's just, in my mind, the most beautiful painting. It's just so creative. And to me, it says so much about the current situation with our First Amendment and censorship. It's like it's melting away. Anyway, I'm encouraging her, and I'm going to try to help her find out where to get some bumper stickers made up and where to get some t-shirts printed. Whether it's cheaper to have the shirts printed somewhere by a company, or whether it's cheaper to buy the sheets of paper you can run through a printer and then iron onto the shirt. So if you guys have any information about a really cheap place to have t-shirts made, or information on what type of paper it is that you need to get to print on, that you can iron onto a shirt, and also where you can get bumper stickers made, and that would be very helpful information. Jay is such a beautiful soul. She is definitely one of God's soldiers. Anyway, with that said, um, I'm going to read to you a short story I wrote. It's called Dancing Flames. And I don't know what I've done with my magnifying glass, so bear with me as I try to do this. Dancing Flames. A small bluebird flew over the top of a mountain, and a sailor who was heading home, leaving behind him 4 years of rough waves and tragedies, things too hard to remember. He had only one thing in his mind: the girl he had left behind when he had sailed from the shores of America to the sandy beaches of Normandy. He smiled as he pictured her soft face and remembered her strong will, a will as strong as his. She had tried bravery as they danced, moving together in small circles, their arms wrapped desperately about each other. But for the second time that day, she cried. He leaned down gently and kissed the top of her head, his strong hands moving to either side of her small shoulders. Gently he pushed her back and looked down into her eyes, saying with determination, "I'll be back for you." Now he walked across the mountains, looking out over the tops of trees at times, and marching unaware across the flat spots, as soldiers often do. They would have 40 years together, 40 wonderful and happy years, always by his side until the illness stole the last spark of life from his eyes. She sat still in the rocker, gazing into the flames dancing over logs framed by the stone fireplace. The stones she and Charlie had brought back from the river in a wheelbarrow. They had hand-picked each stone and placed it together. But the heat of the fire could not touch the cold emptiness inside her. She sat clutching a yellow linen handkerchief. Behind her, a knock at the door. The door opened, and Sally slipped inside and called softly, "Emma? Emma?" But Emma did not answer. She was lost in the dancing flames that mingled with the memories of Charlie. Sally closed the door and walked over. Placing her hand on Emma's small, frail shoulder, she stood quietly. After a while, she went across the room and dragged back a wooden chair, its feet screeching softly across the floor. She placed it next to Emma and sat down. Long after, the fire's flames began to sink. Sally rose, stoked the fire, and added another log. She headed into the kitchen and opened the fridge. There was Kate's soup, only a bit missing. Martha's meatloaf sat untouched. Sally looked across the kitchen as Emma sat unblinking before the fire. "You know what, Emma?" she said. "I'm going to make you some wiener fits and beans." Pulling down the flour and butter, she kneaded the dough, rolling it out and cutting square pieces. She rolled each wiener into its own little doughy blanket. She turned on the oven, chopped some bacon and onions, and placed them in a skillet. When they were done, she added a can of pork and beans and a bit of brown sugar, stirring them together until thick hot bubbles began to rise up. Then she slid the pan of wiener schnitz into the oven. Turning about, Sally took out 2 plates and glasses and placed them on the table. Wiener fits and beans was Emma's favorite. It was the first thing she had served on her new dishes the day she brought them home from town. Charlie had given her money to buy herself a set of matching dishes. They would replace all the mismatched dishes they had gathered over their first 5 years of marriage. He had said anyone who could cook like her deserved a matching set. She returned with matching plates, bowls, and cups, each rimmed by beautiful summer flowers. Before Sally left, she helped Emma into bed. Emma lay there a long time before sleep came. She dreamed. She dreamed of the day she and Charlie had gone fishing down by the river. She had caught a fish and in her rush to get it back to the bank, slipped and fell face first into the river. As soon as Charlie saw she wasn't hurt, he began to laugh. But Emma didn't laugh. She stood up with her face red and her fishing pole. She marched proudly back to the bank, dripping wet, with her fish in tow. She pouted all afternoon. She pouted more while Charlie cleaned the fish. Every now and again he'd burst into laughter. She thought about him laughing as she fried that darned fish. Charlie came to the table, biting his bottom lip. They both sat there, not daring to look at one another. And then Charlie just couldn't help himself and broke into laughter. She jerked her head up, intent on being mad, took one look at him, and without a word broke into laughter too. They laughed until their sides ached and tears rolled down their faces. It was a good day. Emma awoke with a smile on her face and reached her hand across the empty bed. She whispered into the still, quiet night, "I love you, Charlie Witherspoon," and drifted back to sleep. In the morning, Sally knocked at the door, came in, and went into the kitchen to make coffee. She called out to Emma that she was there. With the coffee in hand, she went into the bedroom, only to find Emma dead. "Oh, Emma," she sighed. Her fingers trembled upon her lips. Sally sat down, put the coffee on the table, picked up Emma's hand, and wept. She was weeping as the pastor said the final words over Emma. Emma and Charlie never had any children, but the graveside was surrounded by sure friends and good neighbors. Sally stood alone as everyone slowly left. remembering how Emma would say, "One day I'm going to be with my God and Charlie, and we'll never be parted again." The end. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Next time I'll read a poem. So as always, I love you.